I'm at the Red House with Britt Uzzell, also known in the area as Snuzz. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you for having me, Tyler. It's an honor to be asked.
Man, I'm glad to talk to you.
Me as well.
I consider it an honor myself. So we were just talking, like, you've met Marble. We've had our sweets and got our blood sugar up a little bit, and
Yeah. Ready for conversation.
we're ready to talk. Before we get into the nitty gritty, you were just mentioning your dog. What's your? We were just talking about sort of relationships that we have with dogs, and not just us, but kind of in the broader scope of things, the relationships that people can have with dogs. You're telling me your dog might be a bit rebellious.
Oh, yes.
What's your dog all about?
Well, he's an animal shelter special from the Stokes County Animal Shelter, just a mile down the road from my home. And he's a mixed breed, so we really don't know what he is. But his name's Burnt. We call him Burnt because he's brown and he's kind of black on top, like he was left in the oven a little bit too long when they baked him. So, but he's loyal and beautiful, and I adore him, even though he is trouble. Sometimes the troublemakers kind of win your heart over a little bit, and that's what he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they say that whatever the traits that they say that your dog takes on your traits,
And I believe that to an extent.
yeah, because you probably, as an artist, as a songwriter, as a speaker.
Oh yeah,
whatever,
I definitely took off on my mom when she told me to stay a couple of times, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And same with her. I see this with Marble. I see this sort of emotional sort of like I want connection, but I also want distance thing, and it's like I'm like, Jesus, I don't know if she got that from me or if we just have that in common, but
Right.
we understand each other in a particular way like this.
Yeah, I've definitely got a rebellious streak since a young age. In the 7th grade, my mom made me, on school picture day, she made me swear not to wear my KISS T-shirt in the 7th grade school picture day. And I promised I wouldn't, and I tucked it in my little book bag, and then when I got to school, I put my KISS shirt on, and I had my school picture with my KISS shirt on.
That's great.
I still have to this day that, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So, Burnt and I are a lot alike.
So, why don't we begin our exploration into the? So I'm gonna, as needed. I always forget to do that until after we get going.
Take
She
off
does
the
that.
jingle.
Yep. As we get going, I'm contemplating doing a different style interview than usual. Maybe just trying to sit back and because I've got some softballs I'll just throw at you and want to just hear you talk and hear what you think about
Good.
things.
I'm afraid of hardball.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with just a glimpse into your relationship with music and where it really started?
It started, well, in my family. My family was drenched in music. My father played guitar and loved country music. So there was always a guitar at the house to play. My mother liked to play piano, and so there was always a piano at the house. And I took piano and guitar lessons briefly as a child. But a big part of my inception to music was the church. My parents were fairly fundamental in their religious views, and music was a big part of the church that we went to. And I was singing in the choir. I was in the handbell choir. And after a while in the church, and I started getting towards high school age, and I started becoming disillusioned with the church. And I didn't want to sing in the choir anymore. And I told my mother that, and it was very upsetting to her. And then also told the minister of music that, and he decided that maybe I could play electric bass along with the choir rather than having to sing. And so I thought, well, that's a pretty good compromise. And so then I started playing electric bass with the church choir. And I kind of dug that. It gave me something to do. Of course, I was very mischievous throughout the church. I was not a very well-behaved Christian. I definitely questioned a lot of that, and still do to this day. But I'm glad I had that educational upbringing, of biblical knowledge, because it enabled me to reject some of that biblical knowledge and the upbringing that I had, and it was very fundamentalist. And I love my parents to death, but we disagreed about spirituality and things of that nature. But I do appreciate that was such a good place for my musical beginnings, and I learned a lot playing bass with the choir. And then when I was maybe in 11th or 12th grade, Fayetteville is where I grew up. It's not really a bastion of culture, I'd say. I was only exposed to, corporate music as a youngster in Fayetteville. ZZ Top, Van Halen, Rush, that kind of thing, which I loved and gravitated towards, and played in a cover band that played a lot of that stuff when I was in the 11th and 12th grade, and it helped my chops a lot. It made me a better guitar player, learning Viva La Strangiato, things like that, a Rush song, just more complicated music. And then I decided that I became involved in the hardcore scene in Raleigh in the early 80s, because I lived in Fayetteville, and Raleigh was an hour and a half away. And I would work in Fayetteville during the week and then drive to Raleigh on the weekends, and I played in a band called Resist that played all the little punk venues at the time, the Turning Point, the Brewery, and the church in Charlotte, the Milestone. And so anyway, I realized how important it was for me to start writing music and stop playing other people's music. And that became a main focal point for me in this punk band. Was it's a no-no. There are no punk cover bands. You don't. It's not ethical.
Yeah.
So I started writing music, and that's what got me writing music, is playing punk. And I just have never stopped writing music. I fell in love with it. Being able to create something that's previously didn't exist. And being able to do it, semi-effectively, perhaps. It's a thrill. It's an honor. It feels like a gift that shouldn't be wasted. If you can successfully do that, channel that, idea into a melody and into a song, there's nothing like it. I think it's, one of my main purposes as a human to do that. Can you continue to do that?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and totally agree with that philosophy. I find it interesting over the time that I've been doing this podcast that a lot of songwriters, a lot of North Carolina guys, and just Southerners and people that I've talked to, we've had such similar experiences with coming from church, coming from sort of fundamental backgrounds that, for all intents and purposes, were designed, like they, as far as they knew, were trying to kind of breed a generation that would match that whole system of belief. And it seems like for so many people, it went the total other way. It just like I experienced exactly what you just described, not in a, it took different shapes over time, but for the most part, it was just, simply put, I drastically changed the way that I saw the world from the way that I was like raised to see the world, which is, to me, a very admirable thing in a way. Like, I know that parents don't always love to see when that happens, but
it is an admirable thing.
Yeah.
And being agnostic, which is my belief set, is, some people may say that, you can't be fulfilled being agnostic. And I'm here to say that you absolutely can. I feel much more fulfilled questioning what truth and what's around me rather than blindly accepting. I think that is the jail that I don't want to be in. I want to be able to question anything at any time and discuss anything at any time. And so I'm definitely of the agnostic type set, and I'm not anti-Christian or anti any religion.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I have not seen evidence to convince me that's true. There's been no miracles I've witnessed. I've only heard delusional stories, secondhand stories of miracles and this and that, and I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went anti-religion for quite a while, and it's hard to say that I regret it, because it was a time period where I was really interested in a lot of bright thinkers and writers and interesting people like Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and those guys that kind of really put that language out there for a new generation.
Yeah.
But so I don't regret. It's not that I feel shame for having become so atheistic and sort of outspokenly like, I think religion's probably a bad move. I understand it differently now, and I understand, I think, a new way of looking at religion that I think is a lot more honest, a lot more accurate to like a true understanding of
Your
why it's a part of the world.
More mature.
Yeah, exactly. So but I'm with you, and I think it might be a Bertrand Russell or somebody, some quote that was like, I would rather have questions that can't be answered rather than have answers that can't be questioned.
I'm currently writing a song called "Questions with No Answers."
Ah, that's fantastic.
Yep. But when you're raised in a strictly religious home, and it becomes your belief system, and you really believe, and these are your parents telling you these things. So to me, there was a God and there was Satan, and both of them were supposedly tugging at my soul. And when I realized how much bullshit was in religion and in the Bible and inconsistencies and just nonsense, I like you, got to a point where I rejected it. And because I didn't know any better, I thought that Satan exists and God exists. And I was convinced of that because that's the way I was raised. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm a Satanist. And I thought, I'm going to have a little fun and play with my, satanic little emblems and freak my mom out and put a pentagram here and there. And it wasn't like I was into Satan or anything. I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But now as a mature agnostic, there is no Satan. And I don't, at least I don't think that there is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no way of knowing. But
yeah.
Anyway, I don't feel like because I have rejected, Christianity, so to speak, that I have to be this opposite of some kind of satanic thing. No, I don't have to be either one. I can wash my hands of the whole thing and have my own beliefs and thoughts.
I did the same thing. I went through a devil phase, and intellectually I took it pretty seriously, not in terms of being Satanist or anything like that, being very anti-theist and atheistic, but I got fascinated with the symbolism, the sort of, I don't know if the word the emblematic sort of aesthetic of the devil and like what it meant to the picture of rebellion versus the sort of mainstream culture.
Right.
I loved rebellion, and I loved like kind of feeding that fire in me.
Yeah.
Until it started to really seem to reflect negatively in my psyche somehow. It was really strange, but I started to have some pretty dark dreams about the devil and stuff. And I was like, I think I should become more centrist on this issue. And that added to the whole picture of just changing over time and letting go of some of that sort of, because I guess for me in that time period, I realized that by participating in it in that way of kind of taking on the devil figure caricature or whatever, that I was kind of as guilty as assurance and as like guilty of I was playing the same game as the fundamentalist. I was just playing it for the other team. and I realized that what I wanted to do was get out of the fundamentalist game altogether.
Well, lots of musicians have made a living pretending to have a connection to Satan and this thing, Slayer and Venom, any number of, dark metal groups and stuff, which I listen to and love. I'll go ahead and say, not Venom, but I love Slayer. But I'll often listen to music that is contrary to my ethics and beliefs.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that. Like I can listen to, hip hop, some that has vulgar, references and things that I would never do, but I appreciate the artistry of it, and I recognize the power of what I'm hearing. And so, the music that I listen to doesn't have to align with my morality. And so I listen to a real wide selection of stuff. Now, the music I write does have to conform to my morality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's strange because most of the music I listen to is like driving, hard punk, very rebellious related. And then the songs that I write, especially of late, are more, I think, filled with light, trying not to be so dark. It's just amazing to me that the music I listen to is so different. There's such a dichotomy from what I write. And I don't know why that exists, but it is.
Yeah. Sounds like a cathartic sort of balance thing going on.
Maybe it is, yeah. And maybe it's just also an acknowledgement to myself that I can't really play punk. I mean, I'm 58 years old. I don't want to. I don't want to play driving. I want to play some more mature music. So I think my age has something to do with that as well.
Well, okay. So before I take us to another place, your folks, where did they play music at?
Well, my dad didn't play music out. He just played at home.
Okay.
And occasionally he would play for Moose Lodge or something, a little dinner, and just solo acoustic and entertain a small crowd. But he wasn't really a performer, and nor was my mother.
Okay.
And my brother also played guitar and showed me a few things. And my brother was probably the one that inspired me the most because he was 4 years older, and whatever he would listen to, I would listen to. Whatever he thought was good, I thought was good. You know how that works.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have an older brother?
Not an older brother. I have an older sister and a younger sister.
Yeah.
But I have seen that in the inkling of that from my dad and his relationship with his older brothers.
Right.
I've heard what you mean.
Right.
Do you think that what we've just kind of related on for the last little bit about sort of that shift from what you believed or what you were told to believe and all that, do you think it did or didn't have a direct influence in terms of kind of guiding you toward musicianship and specifically songwriting?
Well, I've always felt a spirituality when I'm writing music. I always feel like I'm like a conduit, and I'm channeling something. It doesn't really feel like me. It feels like when I'm writing something, it just falls into place. It almost feels like I'm somebody else, and it's just that's. I'm a little tongue-tied on how to explain that, but just writing is very spiritual for me. Like when I write a good song, I'm in tears, at just the fact that it came to me and I was lucky enough to bring that up, and I feel like I was blessed somehow, when it works. So it's real spiritual for me. It is.
That's fascinating.
As agnostic as I am, I feel, led to do things.
Yeah.
Guided by voices in a way.
I love that. I have not always had the language to relate to it or whatever. Like I've been back and forth as to whether or not I described the process that way. And as time goes on, it makes more sense to me the way that you said that. What does that process start to look like when an idea is shown to you or given to you or revealed to you or, you know, like arrives with you? How, I guess I'd like to really be able to visualize what an ideal sort of writing experience or maybe even a regular writing experience looks like for you.
When I was younger in my songwriting days, you know, in the early 80s, like I think most of it was based around riffs. Like I would make a riff and thought that's an original riff and thought that sounded cool and something about it I dug. And then I would try to form words to fit in there. And, you know, and I was successful in that technique for quite a bit. But as I matured, especially, you know, nowadays, when I write a song, it's because I have an idea that I want to express. I have something in me. I'm not making something up to try to fit a chord progression that I'd come up with. I'm feeling the words come first. The older I get, the more lyrical oriented I become, the more important the words are, every word, to distill this crazy cacophony of thoughts twirling around in your head into just a couple of key phrases is difficult. And that's what I aim for, you know, when I'm writing, just to try to distill things down into a simple form. And like most of my songs are kind of short. Like I don't like repetitiveness. I like brevity. I like an important, you know, line to be said maybe a time or two, and not run into the ground. So most of my songs are kind of short, and I think that probably comes from the punk ethos of quick, short, you know, get to the point, get out, get on to the next song, kind of a thing. So, yeah, most of my songs are fairly short in length.
Yeah. Are you the kind of guy that likes to write in pure privacy, like silence, or like if you're trying to set the mood for yourself to have a writing time, what does that look like for you?
I don't ever do that. I don't ever put pressure on myself. Like, I'm going to write a song. I'm going to sit down, and I just think about music all the time. It's never not carouseling in my brain, a song or something. I like to write music as I'm driving my old Volvo 240 with no radio, and then you're there with your own thoughts as you're driving. But yeah, you have to block out distractions. Like, you know, you don't want to be you're not going to write a song watching television or, you know, entertaining yourself and having something entertaining you. You have to put time aside to think about it, or just make it a part of your all day long. Just kind of, you keep thinking about this, and eventually it'll fall into place. Yeah, and some songs, as you know, come together just like that. Not often, but then some takes years of revision, but where you think it finally is presentable. You know, At least that's the way it works for me.
What would you describe as the valuable aspects for you in your personal life? What do you find valuable about having the outlet of songwriting in your repertoire?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. What
is songwriting? What about songwriting is valuable to you?
It's cathartic, and it's self-expression and artistic self-expression. It's very rewarding. It is for me to complete a song and it be, you know, accomplish getting across the thought and the feeling in the way that you wanted to. It's amazingly rewarding. I can't imagine my life without it. I can't imagine my life without music in general. I've always been that way. Good times, sad times, always accompanied by some type of music. And music always makes me feel deeper than without it. Like, you know, I can be sad about some incident, but hear a certain song that really even makes me go deeper, you know, into, you know, thought. So yeah, I can't live without music. It's just too integral to everything I do and think.
Yeah. I spoke with a songwriter last Sunday, and asked a question like this. I think I can kind of grasp it again. I'm going to recycle the question, which is something like within your songwriting, and maybe this is within your person too. I'm wondering what you can point to in songwriting that you could say, moments like this are something that I get a kick out of within my songs. Moments like that, or little devices, you know, writing devices like this, or something that I love to find and enjoy trying to put them into a song. I wonder if, like, somebody might listen to your songs, like what they might find in there that's like that.
Well, I don't know how someone's going to interpret my music, and I can't control that, and I guess I'm not the one to speak to that, how other people would even perceive what I'm doing. I'm just trying to, you know, please myself. I'm trying to write something atypical, you know, that will surprise someone when they hear it, that won't hit your ears or lyrically as boring trite. And I don't really know how to answer that, Tyler.
Yeah. I've thrown you two, I think, that are like
man.
a little...
You've gone hardball on me.
They're just a little weird.
I'm about to walk out, Tyler.
I hope not. No, yeah. I mean, one thing I noticed about your songs is something like you're willing to... Well, kind of actually something that you were hinting on a little earlier, like reflecting your morality is something that is not too surprising to find in some of your songs. And that's interesting to me, especially because I've actually, my nature, have become sort of the opposite. Like, I kind of am cryptic about some of that stuff. I'm not very outward about letting it be known that I'm whatever, like taking a position in normal culture life or something like that. You have been willing to do that, and I'm wondering if you could, like, tell me a little bit about that, a little bit about maybe, because you know, I'm sure you're aware of the same thing I'm aware of when I look at something like that, like, this is an artist that's willing to sort of be as direct about this, where he's not really concerned about the risk of somebody being like, I don't agree with that shit or whatever.
Oh yeah, you definitely can't write with your goal being writing something that people are going to like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have to write from the heart and just hope for the best, hope that it comes out and other people can relate to it. Writing is a very personal thing for me, and I always write for myself. You know, I wrote these songs are all written for me because I need them. I needed them really badly, and so all I can do is hope that someone else can hear them and get something out of it. You know, that's what we as songwriters hope for.
Yeah.
Know?
Well, you also talk about your punk background, which I would think, in my mind, and maybe not, but in my mind, there's a thread there between sort of being transparent about who you are, even with whatever political issues or social issues, like being transparent within your art, which is kind of a common practice in punk music, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. We were, very direct, and it definitely got me on a lyrical path that could allow me to do anything. I felt boundless, you know, when I was writing a hardcore punk song, and that feeling is still with me today. When I write, I feel boundless, like I can write about anything, and that's the beauty of songwriting. You can write about anything. It doesn't have to be love. It doesn't even have to be adversity. It can be lemonade. It can be anything, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. So speaking of anything, well, I mean, the little crazy transition, I guess, kind of a curveball transition. But what have you learned about your experience with health?
Well, I learned to appreciate health. That's the main thing I learned. If you're asking about my health, yeah, I was diagnosed with lymphoma in 2008, a lymphoma called Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, and it is an unpleasant lymphoma to have. It's incurable, which means I'll have to take chemotherapy for the rest of my life, and I'll never be able to stop because Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia has the highest, or one of the highest, if not the highest rate of recidivism of any cancer. And it presents, so for 15 years I took intravenous chemo, which is much more destructive to your system as a whole. It destroys all your cells, in an attempt to kill the cancer. But for the last 4 years, a newly developed oral chemotherapy was developed, and that's what I'm taking now. And there are less side effects with the oral. It's more of a targeted therapy and doesn't destroy as much of the healthy cells in my body. It's more targeted and goes for the cancer issue. And what I have, the lymphoma that I have, is the best way I know to tell other people what it's like leukemia. The same exact treatments for leukemia and chemotherapies for leukemia are what are prescribed for Waldenstrom's, what I'm taking. And yet, and even the oral presents, issues like, eating is difficult. I have tremors in my hands that are constant, and I have arthritic issues. My hand can seize up. My voice can seize up. I can just have pain shoot through my body at any time. It's very odd. But so they're just, I couldn't even count all the symptoms and issues that I deal with, but it's kept me from performing and will keep me from performing, I guess, unless some new treatment that comes along that can allow me to be a little healthier than I am right now. So yeah, I miss performing. I really do. But I can't, my last performance, a month or two ago with Martha Bassett, and I walked out on stage and my hand, I couldn't play. There are times where my fingers just harden up and they won't move. And so I had to walk out there, and I tried to start playing, and then just had to stop and apologize and say I can't continue. And that was a straw that broke the camel's back for me. Definitely, I'm not going to perform anymore. I don't want to put myself in that situation. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the audience. It's not fair to the club promoters who, need me up there to playing and entertaining when I said I was going to be there. Now I can still play. I can still write, and I can still record and be fulfilled playing music. I can still play music all I want to. I just can't book a show, and I can't predict what my health is going to be from day to day. So that makes that difficult.
That was the occurrence. That was the catalyst for, I guess, us connecting, and that was something that I saw, and what I've been noticing is that I've been using social media, I guess, as this glimpse into the important happenings around our music community. And old methods of media thought important happenings were like a new album's coming out or a new festival is happening or whatever. But there's also like a human aspect to important happenings, and something like this, like you posting on Facebook, like I'm gonna stop performing for now. To me, that's an important piece of what has happened in our music community here in town. And so I'm appreciative that you're willing to like talk about that and talk with me about it, especially because I think one really valuable thing about your perspective and about the story that we're kind of uncovering is like for a lot of musicians and artists that don't have to think about their health as often or something might take those moments for granted, might take the stage for granted sometimes. And I feel like when I read your post and saw that you weren't going to be performing, it definitely made me reflect on that. It made me think about the importance of valuing, I guess, the time or something.
Yeah, I share my struggle because I know I'm not the only one struggling, and I want, I want to share that because I want, other people that are in a similar situation to hopefully find some inspiration in my willingness to continue. And I feel very fortunate in my ability to continue. Things could be a lot worse for me. Recent developments in science and treatment of leukemia and Waldenstrom's have made it possible for me to even do what I do. So I feel very grateful about things. I don't feel slighted at all, So anyway, I think it's important to maintain also a base of gratitude and appreciate what you've got, because we all want to be happy, and be optimistic, and so I kind of pride myself on making sure that I remain so.
Well, I'm speaking from experience, I guess, on behalf of myself. Being somebody who doesn't have any obvious health issues that I'm at least currently aware of, it's easy. In my mind, if I'm being totally honest with you, it's like I look at a situation like that, and I can imagine myself being bitter about it. I can imagine myself feeling like life isn't fair or something.
Right.
And how do you practice the opposite? How is it somebody who, how is it in that situation, somebody who loves performing, can say that they feel grateful? Like, I'm very curious about how you managed that.
And I honestly can't fully answer it.
Mm.
I think that it's somewhat in the way I was raised, and as some part of it. My mother instilled happiness in me, and she was a wonderful mother, and she was beautiful and loving, and so I'm fortunate. I had good home training and was raised, with lots of love, and I don't know what keeps the hopeful streak in me, but I'm just so thankful that I'm able to remain an optimist, even though I'm facing lots of physical, debilitating issues. And one reason, I guess, is because I know how much worse it could be. Because, at one point, things were, 6 years ago, things were very, very bad for me. I had to have a bone marrow stem cell transplant. I was very sick and could have had a stroke, and I was very near, much closer to death. And these new scientific treatments they're just developed. Like every time it seems like the end of the ropes for me, a new treatment is developed, and it saves me just in time. It's been kind of miraculous over the last 15 years, but I believe in science. Oh, do I? Because they've saved me, scientists.
Mm. I have just the inquisitive part of me has to ask what it's. I hope it's not opportunistic or anything like that to ask these questions, but it's just, you're an artist, and as an artist, you're somebody who's, as we've been talking about, you're keenly aware of your own self in a way that some people maybe don't understand, and so it's interesting to hear you articulate these things, and it's very scary in my mind to confront one's mortality to that degree, to where you know that it's that close. And I'm wondering, I mean, what did that change your sense of mortality? Did that change the way you lived your day-to-day life to feel like it was that close to you?
Well, it definitely made me appreciate every day, especially when I was first diagnosed, and the reality of how sick I was, was really brought home. And yeah, I remember I would go, like, we lived next to Pilot Mountain at that time, and I would walk Pilot Mountain every day, even though I was kind of aching and stuff. And I just remember, like, it was such a spiritual walk, around the knob, and then around the Joe Miyoki, I can't remember, the other trail that goes further down. I'd take it a lot. And yeah, it definitely, being on the brink of losing something makes you appreciate it. No doubt. Makes you much more grateful. And like I said, as these new developments have come about in science and treatment that have allowed me to continue, how can I not be thankful and grateful? I mean, if I had been diagnosed or had this had come about, 5 years earlier, I might not be here. But because of these recent developments, I feel very fortunate in the timing of me getting sick.
Well, so as you say, I mean, it had an impact on just your perspective. I wonder if your relationship with mortality and stuff, like, did that change anything with your relationship with your creativity, and did it drive anything with your creativity?
Probably. I'm sure it just motivated, me, just the gratitude of still being able to continue. Mm-hmm. But I've always felt like a creative person. Well before I was sick, it's just been my nature. I've been a songwriter, and so it's just the continuation. No matter what happens, I'm going to try to continue to write if I can. And do what I'm able.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I may end up thinking of more questions on this issue. I'm not sure, but for now, I'd like to talk about your creativity and talk about your sort of creative accomplishments over the years. You've got a lot of music out. You've got a lot of experiences that you've had.
I've played for a long time. I'm 58.
Yeah. I guess looking at everything you've done so far and everything you've done recently, what stands out to you as some of maybe the experiences you've had as an artist that you think maybe best embody sort of, I don't know, your creative career, or important moments, important milestones?
Well, I'm real fortunate in all my ex-bandmates I adore. I was always in bands that loved each other and got along fairly well. And I just, I feel real fortunate for the other musicians that have been in my life and that have encouraged me and helped shape me into who I am. I've played in just, a number of great bands with wonderful musicians, like Evan Olson, is a Greensboro musician, is the singer of the band Bus Stop, amazingly talented individual. And he was a pleasure to play with for years. And I guess I won't go through naming the different bands that I played in. Most notably, if people don't know who I am, the thing that I would have done that they probably might have heard of would be to play with Ben Folds.
Right.
He was the most accomplished person that I've performed with, and I played guitar with him in 2001 on the tour for Rockin' the Suburbs album. Ben is famous for being guitarless. That is really his shtick, no guitar. And that's kind of what set him apart from a lot of what was happening in the 90s at the time, all guitar-oriented music. I think it helped, him develop his own voice. But then when he recorded that album, Rockin' the Suburbs, he had guitar on it. So then he had me come and play and tour for that. And that was wonderful. That's probably the most enchanting musical tour experience that I've had. We were treated, fairly well. We stayed in decent hotels. We got to tour Australia, Japan, and all over the U.S. several times and into Canada. And it was just a great experience. Ben is a wonderful musician and a great guy to learn from. He's got super great work ethic, and he deserves everything that's happened to him and so much more. He's brilliant, and it was a real honor to be asked to come play with him. And I still consider him a friend. He's a great guy. But since then, I've done really anything to make ends meet. I played solo shows. I played in cover bands, and I've given guitar lessons, songwriting lessons, online or in person. Just do kind of whatever I can to make ends meet.
Yeah. There's an interesting almost phenomenon around here where, like, I just know a bunch of musicians who have, like, toured the world or toured the country, all sorts of things, and maybe it's there's a beauty to that. There's something amazing about that. There's something amazing about the fact that you had the chance to tour all over, overseas and do these things, and yet there's a reality to it as well. That's like, when I was 16, if you had asked me, I would have been sure that anybody who got to tour the world playing music, they would be this millionaire that would just have this very easy life and wouldn't, like, nothing would be, they would just be a household name automatically. And as I get older and I talk to more and more people, and I've toured myself at least semi, like, broadly in the U.S., but not toured like playing proper stages. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still looking at it a little bit from a distance, but nonetheless, it's just a different reality, I guess. The career of the musician and the status that one might perceive that comes along with success.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was getting paid okay with Ben, but that only lasted a year, and there's, especially for me, because I'm unable to perform. It's a little cruel because, we both know that the only real way to make money as a musician at this point is to play live.
Yeah.
Because most of our music is online and it's accessible with free. And which is okay in some regards, because it gets you more exposure and people can watch you and like you and then come to hear you play live. But because I'm not playing live, that cruel reality is, stifled my income.
Yeah.
So I have to find other ways to hustle, and it's not easy.
Yeah, and it's a strange thing. I just realized that, like, there's a lot of us who are on, like, this is different in other art forms, but like me, for example, I make no money from streaming pretty much, and I have a Patreon, and that I make more every month from Patreon than I do probably in half a year or something from streams. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right, I think. And then when you flip that into, like, the realm of the industry that's, like, the highest success rate, that's totally opposite. Like, they don't need, they make enough off of streaming. The 1% of musicians make enough off of streaming that they wouldn't necessarily depend on secondary income, even touring. Some of them, like, they might make a fortune touring, but they make a fortune off of streaming. But the others of us are all looking for ways to compensate for that.
Oh, it's the life of a musician. Financial is brutality.
Yeah,
it really is. I don't know how my friends do it. I'm fortunate that I have a wife who's a professor at Forsyth Tech and Salem College, and she pulls in a decent wage from those teaching gigs. But if I were on my own, it'd be even more difficult. I'm very fortunate because it's difficult, for me to hold a job because of my physical issues.
Yeah. Well, on a brighter note, when you were touring the world and doing all these things, is there a particular place for you that stole your heart?
Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Japanese people have such a pride in their work and in their craft and in whatever they do, even if it's a menial task. Japan was the cleanest place I've ever been. There's no trash anywhere. The venues were stellar. The dressing rooms were a pleasure to be in. And it was just so impressive. And everyone did their jobs they were so dependable. And I'd never experienced anything like that. It's not quite like American culture. We went from playing Japan for several weeks and then came back, and then our first stateside show was at Ziggy's, the old Ziggy's.
OG Ziggy's.
Yeah, and that it was kind of like coming home to a rat hole. No, no offense to Jay Stevens, because that club was awesome. I love Ziggy's, but compared to where we had come from, it was a rat hole. The stage was rickety and bouncy, and the dressing room was close to disgusting. And then there was no, the only restroom was with everyone else, and it was just difficult to fight crowds. Yeah. Anyway, so Japan in a nutshell.
I just can't. I mean, what you just described reminds me of the morning I had today. I just don't understand how that occurs, that difference in culture occurs. I went to the grocery store this morning just to pick up some stuff for today, and as I came out, this woman, I put my groceries in my car, I put my cart up in the little cart thing. This woman rolled past and she looked back and she said, it's a sorry piece of trash human, whoever did that, and pointed to a parking space where a bunch of trash had just been apparently dumped out of a car into a parking space.
I'll agree with her.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, I on my drive home, I just thought, how is it possible? Who is that person?
I don't know.
Never in my life have I done something like that.
Yeah, I'm baffled when I see, because we live in a rural area, and occasionally on the side of the road you'll see someone who just takes a dump, their back of their pickup truck, a sofa, chair, old refrigerator items on the side of the road, and it just infuriates you that someone would use this little secluded rural area as their personal dump, when the actual Stokes County dump is just 2 miles down the road.
Right,
it wouldn't cost you but $5 to throw all that stuff away. And
I don't get it.
It's my license plate says we have a no litter license plate that we've had for 20 years on our Volvo.
It's the thing that drives me the craziest, I think, because it's not. I don't think of it as a crazy environmental position or anything like that. It's not like you have to be anti-oil or something, or anti-oil industry or anything like that to notice how absurd it is to take a piece of trash and just throw it on the ground.
I just don't have anyone in my life, in my periphery, that would behave in that manner, so I never see it,
Yeah.
But I know it exists because I see it, and it's 9 times out of 10, it's McDonald's or some kind of other toxic rubbish that you can just tell the character of the person probably is as shitty as the food they've been digesting.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I hate to sound that clearly judgmental about it, but that's an issue I will be happily judgmental on.
Yeah.
It's just horse shit, man. It's this shit. This thing, this is a shared environment, man. This is the one thing that's just the most obvious thing in the world to me, is that everything around us is a shared environment. Like litter on somebody else's yard is litter in the little world that I live in. It's not just somebody else's yard.
Yeah, you have to feel responsibility to the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how exactly we got on that, but you were talking about Japan. That was what it was. Yeah, I don't understand exactly how, and I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it's an American thing or if it's a poverty thing or what the fuck it is, But there's certainly those pieces of culture that that's like a part of existence that they don't or can't or won't give a shit about, and it can be troubling. And so I would imagine being immersed in an environment where cleanliness and respect for others and all that shit is like is so important.
We know how Japanese society respects elders.
Yeah,
And I find them admirable. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you get to experience a lot of good cuisine over there?
Yeah, I did. Millard, the bass player, and I, my first experience was we went to a restaurant. I can't speak Japanese, not one word. I should have prepped, but I doubt that would have helped anyway. Well, we went to a restaurant, and all the items were on the menu, and we couldn't read. So I just pointed to something and just prayed that it would be decent. And I think Miller did the same thing. And so there was definitely a language barrier, but we definitely had some great food. We were the promoter of the Japanese tour took us out to a really nice restaurant one night, and we all dined together. And so yeah, it was fabulous sushi. It was great.
When you tour Australia or Japan at that scale, do you get to see a lot of the country at that time in life, or was it a flash?
Well, I was fortunate. Like, we would get to a town, like we'd get to Adelaide in Australia, the band and Ben, for 3 days would have to be going from station to station giving interviews. He had to work his ass off. The band, we could just freely walk around the town, tour, see things, because no one cared about us. They just wanted to talk to Ben. So it was great. We had lots of free time. I've never seen, because I've toured all my life, and normally touring in the 90s and stuff. And we get to a town just in time to set up, play, and then we pack it up and drive home that night. So you didn't get to see and experience the towns that you were in, like you would hope to. But the tour with Ben was wonderful, very, very free, because, like I said, he always had obligations. We didn't, and we could do whatever we wanted to. I was all over Tokyo. I truly got the experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was in Shibuya crossing, and I had to see all the the parts that people told me about that I had to experience. It was great.
That sounds great, man. That sounds amazing. Oh, shit. What was I just about to ask you?
Let me tell you, I came to your gig at the Gas Hill Drinking Room.
Oh, yeah?
A couple of weeks ago, and you were awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I really enjoyed the show. I couldn't stay till the end, but I really enjoyed hearing you play, man. You got a great voice. You got a great sense. Like, when you sing, I believe it. I believe you.
That's the greatest compliment you could pay me, obviously. So that means a lot to me, and I'm glad, man. I'm glad you were there.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. So that's was it the one the duo show with me and Kike?
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, thanks for coming.
You're awesome.
Yeah. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great thing. Let's talk about sincerity, maybe. I don't know, but like, the fact that you just said that, the fact that you're like belief or whatever, there's something beautiful about that, I guess. And when you feel like you're experiencing, a show where there's like conviction and there's honesty and there's all those things that we seem to admire. And what does that look like for you, I guess?
Well, some songs are. I write with an sincere intent, with an intention to be sincere, and some I guess I write with more sarcastic, angles or approach, but I think sincerity is probably the biggest, thing that I want to accomplish in my songs. Most of my songs are autobiographical. They're not about other people. They're about me. Even my songs about other people are often about me. It's just my nature. And So what was the question again?
Well, it was about that sincerity, and you just said something that it actually rings true for me too. Sometimes, I write in this way. Sometimes it's like removed from me, but it's filled with all sorts of things that are extremely relevant to me and specifically relevant to me. Sometimes like deep secrets that nobody would know, and so it's interesting how sometimes that's perceived as not autobiographical or not true to oneself or something. But
Well, sometimes it's good for you to write a song from not your perspective, but pretend you're somebody else.
Yeah.
And write about them. I mean, that's a very effective technique. It's just not one that I employ very often. Yeah, I'm pretty autobiographical. I just feel more natural. That's the kind of thing that just appears
yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think other people might describe it as her head is just hanging off of that thing. Other people might describe it as writing from your own experience or whatever, and I think that's an interesting way to phrase it too. And for some reason, as we're talking, I feel like I'm a little, maybe it's the coffee, I'm a little ping-pongy, like all subject to subject, but it occurs to me also as I was kind of like getting more familiar with your stuff, you have some videos out there too that are very actually well done and like cool videos, you know what I mean? Like music videos. What is the story with those?
The story with those is the songs that I put a video to, before I contacted the videographer at all, I knew exactly what I wanted on that video. I had it all lined out. A lot of my videos, I hijack other things that already exist on the internet and put it in my videos. And I literally had the whole template, from 10 seconds to 13 seconds, I want this scene. From 14 seconds to 18 seconds, I want this scene. And I probably drove my videographer crazy. There's been two guys that have done the work for me. One's TJ, and the other guy was named Jack Pennington. And they're the two guys who have done my videos for me. And I'm probably the worst client they've ever had because, most videographers kind of want to exercise their creativity, when they're doing a video, in addition to, producing a product for you. But I had this all lined up and, I wasn't interested in hearing any other ideas about what to go in. I just knew what I wanted. And I think that the visions came out pretty accurate, but it's hard putting a video to a song. Mostly I resist doing that, but occasionally I just like, man, I think these images would work great with that song. I'm going to do it. So when I feel like it's going to work, then I'll try it. And I'm writing a couple of songs right now, and I've got a new song called "What Used to Be," and I'm seeing lots of images with it. So I think I'm probably going to try to put it to a visualization, at least a visualizer video of some sort. But normally videos aren't a concern of mine. The song is,
Well, you said seeing visions or visuals. What does that mean exactly? Like when you're talking about sort of seeing something that doesn't exist, like I guess could you elaborate on that from a creative perspective on how, like, what that experience is like when that video thing is occurring to you?
Ask the question again.
Well, I don't know if your experience is the same as mine, but when you're like, maybe you were listening to a song or something, and maybe you're thinking, okay, I want to make a video for this.
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like and look like when you're starting to get those ideas, those ideas that apparently were like meticulous enough that you could kind of dictate them before they existed? How are those ideas coming to you? Are they like with perfect clarity or a mood or?
An opaque clarity, perhaps, and it comes into focus as you start putting it together. like a song like I'd mentioned earlier, My Four-Legged Friend.
Yeah.
That was a video that I solicited all of my friends to send in pictures or videos of their dogs. And so I incorporated all that in together with, a little performance footage. And so that worked out well to do that. And, other videos, like maybe, All the Difference, a video I've recently done. Like, I just knew I wanted to show, as the song played, clips and images of people doing semi-heroic or heroic things, or making humanitarian gestures of some sort. I just knew that it would flow if I could find the right images. So I just spent a couple of days searching the internet, doing different buzzword searches, and eventually I found the clips that I knew went along with the song and would enhance, from a visual perspective, someone's experience listening to the song. If it's not gonna make the song a little better somehow, the video, I don't want to do it. I only want to do it if I think I can really successfully help someone visualize, things. And actually, I got kind of shy away from videos because I don't want to dictate this image for this song. I want the person to come up with their own images, for when they hear a song. If you've seen a video for it, then all of a sudden when you hear that song, you think of the video.
Yep.
But sometimes I like to not have it the person comes up with their own images. So I don't like doing a video to everything. That's kind of a rare thing for me, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, as I was looking through, I just happened to notice there were some that looked professionally done and stuff, and I was like, there's something here, because I figured that wasn't accidental. Figured you must have had some part in that. So there's a couple things about what you've just said that stood out to me. I mean, I find it interesting that the video process was so meticulous for you, or not, you know what I mean? It was so intentional for you that you kind of, you knew what you were going for as you were going into it.
I did. I knew exactly what I wanted.
Does that transfer over to other forms of creativity for you in terms of like songwriting or whatever? Are you that aware of it and like have intentions like that often?
Well, I mean, I think I know when I've written something good, although it's hard to be subjective or objective about your own material, but yeah, writing is just kind of fumbling around in the dark, and I've got a pretty stringent inner editor in my head that won't allow 80% of what my ideas, I nix them, I negate them. They're not going to work. They're not good enough.
Interesting.
I really only present maybe 20% of my songs. I've got a catalog of ideas and parts and pieces that just aren't ready or aren't there. But yeah, I write a lot more than I release.
Yeah. I write more than I release, but I don't know if this is different than what you're saying or not, but that editing process, I have found that I don't edit too hardcore in real time. And that's what I'm like, when you talk about that, it makes me curious because when I have some kind of instinct that kind of repeats itself or like a line that just wants to be there, I let it be writing is almost subconscious for me in a way. It's almost like sometimes it's intentional and very controlled, but most of the time I find it's like reactive and kind of like letting it flow. So that bit that you were just describing where you're kind of editing in real time is fascinating. And I'm wondering does that mean a lot? Like, does that mean a lot of ideas are flowing into the realm of possibility and you're just kind of being like, nah. Oh, there it is. That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing to me how intricate like distilling this down like needs to be. I mean, every word, like I really like, economy of lyrics. I don't like any wasted lyric. I like every lyric to say something and be important. And of course, when you're writing a song, usually you have tons of extraneous lyrics and ideas. And it's just tough to distill all the noise out into just the bare bones of what you wanted to say. And when you do that, you feel like, wow, how did I even do it? A lot of times when I write a song, I don't even know how I did it or where it came from. It's a spiritual, almost magical thing.
Right.
But you can't forego musical theory and technique and working and learning, because that's how you make the magic occur. You have to, it helps. You don't have to, but it helps to know theory and, of music, and understand the relationship from one chord to another, and having a plethora of ways to play any chord. It helps.
Yeah. There's something so fascinating, I guess, about this idea of the spirituality of that, and then also acting with judgment in relationship with the spirituality of it, or whatever. So it's sort of like it's on in my mind. I don't know if in my mind is the spiritual component part of the judgment of what's actually sort of making the cut. Does it speak to you spiritually?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Like every song I write, as I said, there's a spiritual component to it, and like when I write music, I weep.
Really?
By myself, just uncontrollable.
Consistently.
No, when I come up with something I think I was led to come up with, and I'm so grateful. It just explodes in my emotions, and that's how I know I'm onto something. When I upset myself.
I've never heard anybody say that before.
Sure you have. I cried when I wrote this song. Sue me if I play too long. I can't believe I'm the only one who cries when they write music.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of beautiful, but I've never experienced that. I'm fascinated by that.
May you one day.
I hope so, honestly, because it seems
well.
Deep.
If you don't feel slighted by the spirits, because I am a crier. I'm just extremely emotional. Ever since I've been a boy, I cry easily. One of my biggest faults in performing is I get emotional playing my own songs, and I get choked up, and I get verklempt, and that's fucked up. I should be able to play my songs, without, actually getting emotional while I'm doing it, but I do, and I guess I'm grateful to have that, because it's an amazing feeling. But sometimes when you're performing, you're best if you can keep it in check.
That happened to me once, and I can say I noticed that. So I'm a bit of I can be a I'm not like a crier in terms of like weeping. I am a choke up artist, I guess. Like I can get like kind of like stiff throated or something. And one time, so sometimes when I rehearse songs or when I write something that's super, I don't know, like meaningful to me or whatever, it can at least tug on me in a way. But it seems that what I do is rehearse the song enough that I become numb to all that, and that's part of what preparation for the stage seems to be. But one time I performed a song and it did that to me, and it fucked me up in the middle of a song, toward the end of the song, I guess. But it just, I like my voice got all fucked, and I kept trying to muscle through it. So we did this event called the Winston-Salem Songwriter Sessions, and it was me and two other songwriters on stage. And at the end, and David Ford was with us, and he kind of did Q&A live while we did the performance. And so I just, and then finally I stopped and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do the song. And David kind of flew in and put the attention on the other songwriters and started talking to them so that I could kind of gain my composure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that could happen.
From? Yeah.
And afterwards, I remember saying to my buddy John, like, I feel like I accessed the song in a different way than usual. It was like somehow I accessed it in a way that, I don't know, fucked me up. Like, did to me what I was trying to do to the audience or something.
Right.
Kind of a unique thing.
Well, hopefully they related and appreciated to that in some way.
Yes, somebody after the show said it was very meaningful to them, and so that was comforting, because for me it was a little shocking. It was a little almost embarrassing because I'd never experienced that before.
Yeah.
You know? So you've always been a crier?
I've always been a pussy.
Marb.
Hey, Marb. Good girl.
Love
you, Marble.
Is it sad? Marble. Hey.
Is what sad?
The things that get you in this way. Is it sadness or happy crying?
Oh, it's both, but it's uplifting. Like, it's life affirming.
It's a positive
like sadness.
crying.
Yeah. It's like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm fulfilling, my goal here. And it's fulfilling my duty, I think, is my job,
Man, that's so interesting. I didn't always have that. I got it. So going back to kind of the start of our conversation, it was post making.
You can't have my tea. You stop.
Marble, come here. Hey, can you chill? Gross.
What a sweet pup.
She is a cutie.
I would love her if I had her. She'd be welcome in my home anytime.
She wants to play. She doesn't really understand what a podcast is, so she's kind of,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I guess she doesn't listen to them. She's like living under a rock or something. I don't know.
Well, I was surprised to find your podcast video.
Yeah.
Most podcasts that I'm familiar with aren't videoed. So
it is growing with YouTube, because YouTube is like I don't know how it stacks up with podcasts, but a lot of podcasts are putting their stuff on YouTube, and that's a huge part of the following, I think.
Right.
Mine are comparable. Like it used to be when it started out that I was getting as many views sometimes on YouTube as the audio. I don't think consistently I am, but anyway.
Well, I just know I've always admired you and your approach to music, and so this was just a great chance to come over and speak with you and get to know you a little bit better, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to have you over at my place sometime.
I'd love to do that.
We don't have any microphones, but we got it going on.
Yeah, we can just hang out.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I had one other question. We're reaching our time, so I won't keep you much longer.
Okay. Yeah, I figure the audience is nodding out at about this time.
Yeah, and yeah. So so going back to what we were just on, and going back to the early part of our conversation, it seemed to be that with the shift from sort of like rejection of religion and anti-theism and all that stuff into a more accommodating state of mind, that's where I noticed my emotional state in terms of sensitivity to tear-jerking positive information. That's where I kind of opened up to that stuff, and where sentimental things, where stories of success and stuff like that would like kind of get to me in the heart. And I don't know why it was that change that seemed to open that door a little bit, but it sounds like you, rather than it being consistent with all that stuff. It's hard to imagine like a punk rocker, I guess. You and your whatever, in your earlier days of being a punk rocker, it's hard to imagine you being teary-eyed back then.
No, I've always been, even as a boy, I I can remember being very emotional. Like my mother would not let me watch Lassie or even Flipper because they both had a moment in each where it was sad, and I would get so upset. And so my mother stopped letting me watch Lassie as a boy. Just so it's I think it's wonderful because I mean I feel things like I feel them really deeply, and I can't imagine other people don't as well. But I consider it a gift and not a burden to be sensitive about things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's added to your, I don't know, whole experience as a
hopefully
artist.
as my empathy can help in my songwriting, help understand other perspectives other than my own. So,
Well, I will ask you one more question if that's all right, and then we'll start to wrap up.
okay.
And it's a pretty broad, open-ended question. What would you say is the most important thing to you at this point in life?
Enjoying the moments that I have, and appreciating the beautiful people in my life, like my wife. She's just my best friend, and I love being with her so much, and I feel so fortunate to have that relationship. I want to keep creating music, and what was the question again, Tyler?
The most important thing to you in life?
That's a really hard one to nail. The most. I'm not a ranker. I don't rank art. I don't rank many things. I just I'm after all I've been through. Every day is a gift, and it just really feels that way. And like the most important thing is for me to try to make myself and the people in my life who depend on me happy and healthy, and give them a reason to feel good about themselves. Because my friends and are wonderful people. I've got great people in my life, and I like expressing to them how important they are. On occasion, I think it's real important. So I really don't know what's the most important thing. Just every day, and I want to try to give back when I can, how I can, and just be a kind, decent person.
Well, man, I'll tell you this as we close. I appreciate your time and your willingness to do this. You had mentioned earlier in our conversation that you hoped that maybe your experience and your fortitude might sort of be part of an inspiration or a way to relate to people who might be going through a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will just offer the observation that I think that your experience and the way that you've communicated it and the things that just like your career, I think it does serve to inspire people who aren't going through the same thing either. Like, and I will speak for myself on that. I find that, like I said, the post, knowing that you exist, knowing that you have had these struggles and yet you still endure to create art, I find that inspiring. I find that meaningful, especially to our little creative economy that we have here. And I think you're an important part of it.
Community. We've got so many talented people in this area.
Yeah.
I love living here in the greater Winston area. Just so much talent and sincerity, and purpose, artistic purpose. And I'm not going to start naming names because I know I'd leave someone out. But I just love so many of the musicians in this area.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, and I love being a part of that community. It used to be a community that I looked forward to being a part of, and now it feels like I am, I guess. And
well, I'm glad you and I
have
made this connection. You and I are definitely in commune now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. All All right. Well, I don't think I'll keep us any longer. Thank you again for your time, for real.
Thank you, Tyler.
All right.
Appreciate it.